Alzheimer's disease is a complex and multifactorial neurodegenerative disorder that primarily affects older adults. The genetic basis of Alzheimer's involves various genetic and environmental factors. Alzheimer's disease is caused by the accumulation of two types of abnormal protein deposits in the brain, beta amyloid plaques and tau tangles. These deposits disrupt communication between brain cells and lead to their death. There are two forms of Alzheimer's disease, early onset and late onset. Early onset is rare and caused by mutations in three genes, APP, PSEN1, and PSEN2. These mutations account for less than 5% of all cases of Alzheimer's and typically manifest before the age of 65. Late onset Alzheimer's disease is more common and likely caused by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. The most significant genetic risk factor for late onset Alzheimer's disease is the APOE gene. This gene has three common variants. In addition to genetic factors, environmental factors such as head injuries, cardiovascular disease, and lifestyle factors such as diet and exercise may also contribute to the development of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a common trait in the human population, particularly among older adults. According to the World Alzheimer Report in 2019, approximately 50 million people worldwide are living with dementia, with 60 to 70% of cases being due to Alzheimer's disease. The prevalence of Alzheimer's increases with age, with an estimated 10% of people over 65 and up to 50% of people over 85 being affected by the disease.
23andMe tests for the APOE gene and more specifically identifies the E4 variant alleles. The E4 variant affects the apolipoprotein E protein. This protein combines with fats in the bodies to form molecules called lipoproteins. These molecules are responsible for packing the cholesterol in the body and carrying them through the bloodstream. The APOE gene is expressed the highest in the liver and in the brain. It makes sense that the APOE variant would cause an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease because it is expressed in the brain. The 23andMe test only tests for the E4 variant of the APOE gene because it is the only variant of the APOE gene that causes an increase in risk of developing Alzheimer's. According to the 23andMe website, having one allele of the E4 variant increases the risk of developing Alzheimer's by 2 to 3%. And having two alleles of the E4 variant increases the risk of developing Alzheimer's by 8 to 12%. 23andMe does not test for the E3 or E2 variant of the gene. 23andMe only tests for the APOE gene. 23andMe does not test for the PLD3 and TREM2 genes, which have a larger impact on one's risk of developing Alzheimer's disease.
On our SNP chip test, we will include close to 100 different genetic variations that we will test for. These genes have been selected based on studies over whole genome sequencing, and as such, it is unclear what each individual gene we test codes for. But take the PLD3 gene, for example. This gene has a variation that has been shown to increase risk by 100%, but no studies have been conducted into what this particular gene does. Because this SNP chip test is specifically made for and tests Alzheimer's-related genetic variations that have been found through whole genome sequencing, this test finds more genes that affect Alzheimer's than any other. With the first gene tested, the PLD3 gene, which has been linked to a 100% increase in risk, this test can more accurately inform our customers than 23andMe, which only tests for a variation on the APOE gene and only indicates a 12% increase in risk at most. Given that Alzheimer's has a base risk of about 2%, this 12% is almost meaningless, but with the sheer number of variations this SNP chip tests for, you can find a meaningful amount of data about your individual risk.
Genetic tests do not check for any other risk genes, as it is likely that a combination of several different genes determine the risk of developing Alzheimer's. The APOE gene consists of variants 2, 3, and 4. Having variant 4 increases the risk the most, but does not mean an individual will definitely get Alzheimer's. About 15 to 25% of people have this allele, and 2% to 5% carry two copies. At the same time, having variants 2 or 3 does not mean you are completely protected from the disease either. Furthermore, the risk of developing Alzheimer's is complex and involves many other factors along with genetics. The strongest risk is age, as the likelihood of getting Alzheimer's increases as you get older. However, other risk factors include diet, exercise, smoking, alcohol intake, and depression. Learning about APOE type will give someone an idea of their risk in developing Alzheimer's, but it will not accurately say whether they will or will not develop the condition. Genetic tests do not take into account other genetic links and environmental factors that may eventually lead to the development of Alzheimer's disease.
Emotionally, receiving a positive test result can be very stressful and cause anxiety. It can also lead to feelings of guilt or shame, particularly if the condition is stigmatized in some way. Financially, it can be expensive to manage and treat a genetic disease, particularly if it is a chronic condition that requires ongoing care. Some people may be hesitant to undergo genetic testing due to concerns about these potential emotional and financial outcomes. Additionally, some people may be concerned about genetic privacy, particularly if they are worried that their genetic information can be used against them in some way. However, there are also positive reasons why individuals may want to consider getting tested. For example, if someone has a family history of a genetic disease, knowing their own genetic status can help them make informed decisions about their health and plan for the future.